Put your hands together for Seth Rogen!
Hi, I'm Seth Rogen. I'd like to tell you a bit about myself.
This kid had no idea what was about to happen to him.
The entertaining, the very funny.
Seth Rogen's become a leading voice in comedy.
Seth Rogen had a major 2007.
Seth Rogen took home 13 Emmy Awards last night.
GQ Magazine, the Man of the Year.
Breaking news tonight.
I'm in a movie called The Interview that almost started a war. You might have heard of it.
North Korea says the United States is on the verge of committing an act of war.
North Korea was behind a computer hacking attack on Sony Entertainment.
Talk to me a little bit about that. North Korea described the movie as an act of terrorism.
But how? How the heck did this guy go from a 13-year-old doing stand-up, writing movies with his best friend, to becoming a comedy superstar, making and starring in movies like Superbad and Knocked Up, to somehow almost starting a freaking war between the United States and North Korea, to now, where he's one of the biggest creators and producers, owning production companies like Point Grey, running shows like The Boys, Gen V, Invincible, and being responsible for basically every comedy movie that's coming out today, and somehow still finding a way to make the best project he's ever created in a show called The Studio for Apple TV. But you know what? After all of that, the only freaking question I have for this guy is, how the heck did...
I did not grow up with a lot of money. You know, my parents, my mother, she was a cashier at a department store, and my dad worked at like a vocational college as an ombudsman. We grew up, you know, in a small apartment. When I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, like the idea of making movies became very like fascinating to me.
You and your longtime friend, longtime creative collaborator, Evan Goldberg.
We met in bar mitzvah class when we were 12. And I was one of those kids with a camera who was like running around making movies. I was obsessed with movies, quoting movies. I wanted to watch, all I want to do is watch movies. And I found a guy with the same skill, which is like miraculous. Our high school, Point Grey, was across the street from 2 video stores. Like we would spend more time doing this than actually watching the movies, just walking around the video store, looking at movies, talking about movies. And so then we became obsessed with movies. But like from a young age, me and another guy had a very inherent sense of like how to write a movie, basically.
Were you writing notes for it while you were at Point Grey?
Me and Evan started writing Superbad when we were in high school, when we were in 8th grade, basically. I mean, the first movie I wrote was Superbad with Evan, and it was very much informed by our high school experience. It's largely based on real things that happened.
But they wasn't just writing a movie so it can get picked up or they can get famous. They were genuinely just writing a movie that they wanted to watch.
It's a weed action comedy, so it's tailor-made for me. Like, I wish someone else had made it so I could go see it and not know what was going to happen. Without knowing how it ends.
So at 6 years old, not only did he know what he wanted to do for the rest of his life, but also only at 13 years old, he found a way to set up his life for success.
At that time, sitcoms were very popular, Seinfeld, things like that. And I grew up watching The Larry Sanders Show. So I was like, the most practical path for me to have some sort of success, I'll start doing stand-up comedy. Maybe I can get an agent and be like, you know, Ray Romano or Jerry Seinfeld or something like that. And then maybe I can write movies and that can like turn into a movie career, basically.
I didn't like attention. I wasn't someone ever who like sought attention. I more just really liked writing jokes.
Seth Rogen came to Punchlines down in Gastown. He was 14 years old and wanted to do stand-up comedy, and it was the very first time he was ever going to do stand-up.
I'm Seth Rogen, and I'm a former Playgirl centerfold model.
Were you 12 or 13 there?
14 maybe. That was my awkward phase. You can tell.
He wasn't allowed into the comedy club, but he could stand out in the lobby, and then I introduced him onto the stage. That was the very first time he ever did stand-up, and it was a big success. He did very well.
I look like I'm a lot more confident than I am, I think, in that clip. I probably had diarrhea all day that day.
Well, about 2 months later, his parents came to me and said, I heard you're going down to a writing conference in California called the Judy Carters, and it was at Big Bear Lake in California. And they said, do you think you could take Seth with you? I'm like, yeah, sure. We all got up and did our stand-up. Well, he got up and did his, and there were people from ABC, NBC, and CBS there, and he got picked up for Freaks and Geeks.
Well, I could work my ass off on a freighter like my dad, or become a farmer.
When I auditioned, I wasn't that nervous. I didn't expect to get it, so I just went in and did my thing.
I brought him back to Vancouver, dropped him off at the airport, and I haven't seen Seth ever since.
Why is the house up for sale?
Because we're moving, or we've moved, sold to LA.
I like auditioned in Vancouver and then went to LA with a job, which actually, honestly, like is one of the most lucky things that happened to me.
Your entire family came to LA. I read that they'd lost their jobs at around that time.
Yes.
Seth's dad has yet to find work. Right now, their son is the only breadwinner in the family.
And that made you the sole breadwinner in the house.
You were at the time the breadwinner for your family.
We just haven't hit our stride. We're trying to find out what our future is here before we kind of commit.
Either way, I have more money now than I ever had before, so it doesn't bother me that much having to pay for most things because whatever, you know.
I remember like the first year on Freaks and Geeks, my dad was like, you made more this year than I've made my entire life put together. We did Freaks and Geeks and we did a show called Undeclared that was on Fox in 2000, 2001.
But there was a bit of a dry spell soon after that, right?
Yeah.
And what was that time like?
And NBC could cancel Freaks and Geeks at any time.
The show was canceled after just 12 episodes.
Then I basically didn't work for like 3 years, essentially. It was several years where I essentially did nothing, which is a pretty long time, especially when you're that age. It was like the age where most people I knew were graduating college and like really starting their lives. It seemed as though maybe my career was ending and I was gonna have to move back to Vancouver and work in a video game store or something, you know? I might have to move back in with my family because I might not be able to afford to live in Los Angeles. I was very close to hitting a point where I just couldn't afford to live in Los Angeles anymore.
Now, for most people, this would have been the end of the world. He would have went back home and been miserable his whole life thinking of what could have been. But that didn't happen to Seth. And you could say that's because he's an incredible hard worker or that he's really talented, or you can even say that he's lucky. But to me, I don't think that happened to him because of what he says right here in this clip.
If things just don't work out, then whatever, go back to Vancouver and continue the life I had before, which wasn't that bad. Either way, it can only be a positive thing because I'm come out ahead either way.
Everyman? Yeah. Really? Is that who you want to be?
People like an everyman.
Now, after Freaks and Geeks failed, Judd Apatow felt kind of responsible not only for Seth Rogen, but for all of the cast that was a part of that show.
We knew we were canceled like halfway through the season. We shot the finale before we had officially been canceled, because when it started out, there was like this elaborate craft service display, like episode 1. And then by episode 6, there was just like some corn pops and a little bit of creamer. And we had a hunch that we were getting canceled.
Because not only did the show fail, but their careers were failing as well. So he had to make a movie.
When the show ended, I just thought, I'm just going to pretend the show didn't get canceled. And so every movie, in a way, has been just an episode of Freaks and Geeks.
Seth was pitching me ideas for movies, and they were, big science fiction type of ideas. And I was trying to convince him that he was so funny that he didn't need anything like that. So I said, Seth, you're funny just standing there. You don't need any of that. You could just get someone pregnant, and that's enough for a movie.
We said, let's just put everyone in it that we wish was a star.
Basically, after 40-Year-Old Virgin, which he could have made anything he wanted to, he said, I'm going to make Seth Rogen a movie star.
Let's put that Jonah kid in it. Let's put Seth in it. Let's get Baruchel and Jason Segel.
It was all people that I was and still am very good friends with, and people that I had essentially lived with each of them at some point or another as like a roommate or something like that in the years leading up to the movie.
I think he was offered Spider-Man 3, but he turned it down to do this. Knocked up.
And then it finally happened.
Judd is my favorite writer and director around, and he put me in this movie, and then he's let me star in my first movie right after this. So I'm real excited. It's called Superbad.
We've been trying to sell this script for 8 years almost. After around 6 years, you begin to think, maybe no one's going to make this movie.
Jonah Hill and Michael Cera's characters are based on Seth Rogen and co-writer Evan Goldberg.
It basically took us so long to get the movie made that I aged out of the role, essentially. So I played this cop that was always in the script.
We wrote it in high school for the most part, so something would happen to us Monday, we'd write it in on Tuesday. Our whole goal for writing it was to make a very realistic portrayal of our high school experience.
When this movie first came out, not only was it successful, but it was also a little controversial for being so dirty and so bad that even Sony didn't want their own game console in the movie.
When we wrote Superbad, we had a scene where they're playing a Sony PlayStation, and Sony made the movie. It was a Sony movie. After we sent the script to approve the use of the PlayStation, they said, Jonah Hill's character is too despicable to be playing a Sony PlayStation, which was insulting because the Jonah character is based on me.
But honestly, who the heck cares about that? Look, not only did Seth and Evan get their dream film made in Superbad, and it became a Hall of Fame level comedy film, but after this, Seth Rogen became a part of the golden era of comedy movies.
I had a very fortunate series of events when it came to my first 3 or 4 films coming out. I had a smaller role in 40-Year-Old Virgin, massively successful movie, and then I was in The Star of Knocked Up, which was a massively successful movie.
And this man's face just starts showing up everywhere. Step Brothers, Pineapple Express, Zack and Miri, Observe and Report, Funny People. Even his voice was becoming famous. Voice acting for movies like The Spiderwick Chronicles, Horton Hears a Who, Kung Fu Panda, Monsters vs. Aliens. But in 2011, he put out his first major flop in a movie called The Green Hornet, which even the people who made and worked in that movie don't even like it. And I don't know why. I actually really like this movie, but I guess I'm in the minority because it freaking flopped hard. Now, I never read or watched any original Green Hornet material, but as a guy who just watched the movie for what it was, I still don't understand why it's so hated. But honestly, that didn't really even matter because he bounced back so quick, voice acting as an alien for a movie called Paul, starring in 50-50, and then forming his own production company with his childhood best friend Evan called Point Grey. But after making This Is the End and Neighbors, these guys came up with a movie idea so bad it almost put the whole freaking country at risk.
Rogen and his co-star James Franco, playing journalists, want to assassinate the country's leader.
Want to go kill Kim Jong-un?
Totally. I'd love to assassinate Kim Jong-un. It's a date.
This was not your usual comedy.
You've made the art gallery here, Robson Square, North Korea.
We have.
Little did we know when we saw Seth Rogen walking around, he was about to set off an international incident.
It was a horrible experience, yes. It's bad to be blamed for almost starting a war.
Sony executives did have their emails hacked. A lot of private information was leaked.
The U.S. government is preparing to blame North Korea for the hack attack on Sony Pictures Entertainment.
They have also made a terroristic threat to any theater that decides to screen the movie.
Sony decided today to cancel the Christmas release of the comedy The Interview.
And now theaters have decided that they will not screen the movie.
So I think they made a mistake. I wish they'd spoken to me first. We cannot have a society in which some dictator someplace can start imposing censorship here in the United States.
People were getting fired over it. People we knew were getting fired over it. The head of the studio got fired essentially because of it. Like until like the president is dedicating entire news conferences to you, until there's like documentaries and books written about the fallout of your work, I would argue you have not truly dipped your toe in controversial waters. Well, the studio provided the filmmakers with security in case someone from North Korea was going to kill us, I guess. And then literally one day they were just gone. The studio just didn't want to pay for security anymore.
But somehow, after all of that commotion, he landed the role of Steve Wozniak in an Oscar-nominated movie about Steve Jobs. And throughout all this, Seth Rogen had lots of freaking celebrity friends, but there was one guy that he was extremely close to. Maybe a little too close. But then, something happened.
To make myself feel better, I decided to prank James Franco. I posed as a girl on Instagram, told him I was way young. He seemed unfazed.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, dude.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, great prank, buddy. I've been waiting at the Ace Hotel for like 3 days.
Okay, we'll talk about that later.
5 women have accused actor James Franco of sexually inappropriate or exploitative behavior in new interviews with the Los Angeles Times.
5 women have accused Franco of inappropriate or exploitative behavior, which he disputes.
He's a good actor, and if he acts like he has nothing to hide, people will believe it.
Some women during your time on stage said that was hypocritical based on their experiences that they've had with you. They made some allegations.
Another woman told the LA Times that Franco cast her for a role because I have nice breasts.
James Franco says sexual misconduct allegations against him are not accurate.
I have my own side of this story, but I will, hold back things that I could say.
Look, I'll admit, I did sleep with students. I didn't sleep with anybody in that particular class. Over the course of my teaching, I did sleep with students. And that was wrong.
And at this point, man, Seth Rogen has been through enough controversy. So him and James Franco aren't publicly friends anymore. And this is what James had to say about it.
I absolutely love Seth Rogen. I worked with him for 20 years. We didn't have one fight. He was my absolute closest work friend. We aren't working together right now, and we don't have any plans to work together. Of course, it was hurtful, in context, but I get it.
But you know what? If you ask me, if James Franco was anything like how he acts in the movie This Is the End, I'm more than sure them ending their friendship was probably his idea because he doesn't want his career to be affected from his mistakes. And I have no way to prove this, but just from the fact that him and Dave Franco still work together tells me that behind the scenes they're probably still tight. But because of what happened, I don't think they're ever gonna work together anytime soon. Since then, this man has starred in a Steven Spielberg movie. He's the official cinematic voice of Donkey Kong. He made an unbelievable Ninja Turtles movie, and he voiced Pumbaa in The Lion King. But after all of these years and all of these incredible projects he's helped make and create himself, he somehow found a way to outdo his own self and create possibly the best show on television right now. That's so good it won 11 Emmys, but not one thank you to Sal Saperstein, which my God was such a missed opportunity.
Why did none of you thank Sal Saperstein?
I don't know, it's our own joke. It feels weird to reference your own joke.
I mean, the man even has a successful luxury pot furniture business, for crying out loud. So whether you like Seth Rogen or not, there's one thing you can't deny about this guy. No matter what life threw at his way, he just never freaking stopped working. And he never stopped being Seth Rogen, even if he's Donkey Kong. So find whatever it is that you truly love to do, and find one other person that's just as passionate about it as you are. And if you want to take it a step further, put God first in your life every single day, and I promise you, the Lord will bless you and you will 100% see it through.